About 4 or 5 years ago, we had a contest to pick the favorite Bible character of the people of this parish. We took Jesus out of it. He kind of plays in a separate league, but the winner of that contest was Mary, the Mother of God. At the time, I was really a little bit surprised at that. I mean, I'd been thinking it might be Moses, might be the Apostle Paul, somebody like that would win. But as I thought about it, I could understand why Mary is so popular with us. Because you know those great heroes of the Bible, the people like Moses, Paul, Peter, Abraham, all of those? We admire them and everything, but it's hard for us to really relate to people like that. We feel like those people are somehow above us. We really cannot imagine ourselves doing the sort of things that they did. But Mary is somebody that we can relate to. Mary strikes us really as an ordinary person. The Bible certainly does not tell us anything about her that indicates she was among the elite, she was among the wealthy, anything like that. The passage from Luke that we read today is the first time we learn anything about Mary. What does it say about her? Just that she was a virgin, that she was pledged to be married to a man named Joseph. That's really about all it says. And when we read in Matthew, that's all it says too. And of course the story in Matthew really doesn't even focus on Mary, it focuses on Joseph. We talked last week about how amazing it is that God chose to have the divine Son, one of the members of the Trinity, come to earth in the form of a helpless baby. But once that decision was made, God had another important decision to make. Who was going to be that baby's mother? Who would be the woman responsible for giving birth to and raising God the Son in his incarnation on earth? Of course, as we know, it was Mary, but why? Why Mary? Why, out of all the women in the world, did God choose Mary to be the one to give birth to and to raise Jesus, the divine Son of God? Now, part of it may well be Mary's very ordinariness, at least in human eyes. That might be part of the reason. Because, you know, the fact of Jesus' birth in a stable in Bethlehem is so ingrained in us, we really cannot imagine Jesus' birth happening any other way. But it could have been. Jesus could have been born to wealthy parents. He could have been born in a palace. Could have been surrounded by all kinds of people of prestige and privilege. In fact, that's how a lot of people at that time expected the Savior would be born. That's not the way it was. And I don't think that was an accident. I don't think God would have left anything about the birth of the divine Son to chance. The fact that Jesus was raised by ordinary people, I think, gave him an understanding of human beings that he might not have had otherwise. Now maybe you say, wait a minute, if Jesus is God, God the Son, then surely he understands everything. Why would he need to be raised by ordinary people to understand human beings? And there is truth in that. But remember that while Jesus was fully divine, he was also fully human while he was on earth. And that means he had to grow and develop and learn just as all human beings do. And it also means that his parents would have had an influence on him, just as all parents have an influence on their children. And the other part of it is, you know, to fully understand something, you really need to experience it yourself, don't you? You know, I did not know what it was really like to be a lawyer until I became one. I did not know what it really was like to be a pastor until I became one. I did not know what it was really like to be a husband until I became one. And I'm sure you can think of a lot of things like that in your life too, that you really did not know what it was like to do it until you actually did it. You never really know what something is like until you experience it yourself. Now, Jesus, as the divine Son of God, clearly did understand human beings, but I have to think that actually living as a human being among human beings, especially just ordinary human beings, would have somehow given him a deeper and clearer understanding of us than he would have had before. So that's one part of it, but still, you know, there are an awful lot of ordinary people in this world, right? I mean, there's an old quote attributed to Abraham Lincoln to the effect that God must have loved common people because he created so many of them. So while saying that Jesus needed to be born to an ordinary woman eliminates some people, it still does not really answer the question. Why Mary? Why, out of all the ordinary women in the world, was Mary chosen to be the mother of the divine Son of God. The thing about it is, Mary was a woman of great faith. Look at our reading for today. Mary's minding her own business one day. All at once the angel Gabriel appears to her. And Gabriel says she's going to have a son. She's going to name him Jesus. He's going to be great. He's going to be called the Son of the Most High. He'll have the throne of David. His kingdom will never end. Suppose that was you. Suppose you were minding your own business, doing whatever you do, and this happened to you. What would your reaction be? I'd probably freak out, you know. I mean, just having an angel appear to you would be weird enough, and then have the angel tell you all these incredible, unbelievable things. I'd be going, who, me? I'm going to do what? My son's going to be who? Are you crazy? Am I crazy? What's this all about? And yet Mary just accepts it. She stays calm about it. She never protests. She never questions. Never even thinks about refusing. She only asks one question. How will this be? How will this be? No doubts that it's going to happen. No fear about being chosen. No fear about what's going to happen when everybody finds out she's pregnant. She just accepts it all. All she wants to know is how it's all going to happen. That's incredible faith. That's incredible trust. Mary was fully obedient to God. She was being asked to do something unbelievable, something frightening, really. To be the mother of the divine Son of God. Yet she simply accepted it. She trusted that if this was what God wanted, then God was going to make it all work out somehow. Mary may have been an ordinary woman in some ways, but she clearly had an extraordinary faith and trust in God. And she needed that faith. In Matthew, we read about how King Herod decided to kill all the boys who were 2 years old and younger in an attempt to kill this king that he'd heard about. Mary and Joseph had to take Jesus and go to Egypt. They had to live in a foreign country where they probably did not know anybody, probably did not know the language, and somehow they needed to make a living for themselves there, for themselves and their precious baby. And then just when they were getting established there, they were told to go back to Nazareth and start over again. I'm glossing over that kind of quickly because of the lack of time, but read Matthew chapter 2 sometime and really think about what it would have been like to live that. Yet, we're never even given a hint that Mary complained about it, that she thought it was unfair of God to allow it to happen. It took incredible faith, incredible trust in God to do all that Mary and Joseph had to do. We're not told much else about Mary's role in raising Jesus. We have the story in Luke where Mary and Joseph lose track of Jesus only to find him in the temple talking to the rabbis. But Mary clearly stays involved in Jesus' life. In fact, she was the one who prompted Jesus to work his first miracle, turning the water into wine at the wedding feast. And that's a remarkable story too. If you remember that, they're at a wedding, the hosts run out of wine. Mary goes to Jesus and tells him that. And Jesus does not want to do anything, but he ultimately does. And as I was thinking about that story, there was something about it that had not occurred to me before. The reason Jesus gives for not wanting to act in that wedding story is he says, "My time has not yet come." And Mary just ignores that. She goes to the servants and tells them to do whatever Jesus says. And now this is just speculation on my part. You don't need to agree with it. But what if Jesus saying, "My time has not yet come," was really just the human side of Jesus kind of making an excuse? You know, after all, Jesus knew what was going to be in store for him once he started his ministry. He knew once he started doing miracles and people started to realize who he was, his life was never going to be the same. He knew that this was something that was going to lead him down a road that would eventually take him to the cross and to death. Could it be that knowing all of this, Jesus was just a little bit hesitant, a little bit reluctant to start down that road. He was just trying to put it off as long as he could, knowing where the road was going to lead. And maybe Mary knew that it was, in fact, time for Jesus to start down that road. So after all, the angel Gabriel had told her who Jesus was and what he was going to do. Maybe the human side of Jesus needed that push from Mary to get started in his ministry and do what he had come to earth to do. Why was Mary chosen? Because Mary was an ordinary woman of extraordinary faith. She was fully obedient to God. She trusted God completely. She was able to put up with all kinds of hardships without complaint. She accepted the responsibility God had given her. She lived up to it as well as she could. I said at the beginning of this message that we can relate to Mary, and I hope we all can. Because Mary was what most of us are supposed to be. Ordinary people with extraordinary faith. People who are fully obedient to God. People who do trust God completely. People who don't complain, but who accept the responsibility that God gives us and who live up to it as well as we can. And maybe you say, but that's not me. Yes, I may be an ordinary person, but I don't have extraordinary faith. Well, maybe not. But maybe you do. You think Mary knew that she had extraordinary faith before all this happened? Maybe, but I doubt it. I don't think Mary thought there was anything special about her. But God saw something special about her. God chose her to be the mother of the divine Son of God. Maybe you don't think there's anything special about you either. But I can tell you this. God sees something special about you. God sees something special about each one of God's children. Just like human parents always see something special about all of their children. And God has chosen you to do something. It may not be as incredible as being the mother of the divine Son of God, but it still is something special. There is something that God has chosen you for. Something that only you can do. What is it? I don't know. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you're already doing it. And here's my advice. Keep your eyes open. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep living your life. Keep trying to serve God as well as you can. But keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. Keep your heart open. Ask God to show you what it is that you're supposed to do. Ask God to give you chances to serve God. Because God will hear that kind of prayer. And in due time, when the time's right, God will always respond to it. Usually it doesn't even take very long. There was something about Mary. But there's something about you and me too. And if we're open to it, God will use us in a special way. Just like God did with Mary. Amen.